Welcome into WagerTalk TV. We're talking FSU at Notre Dame. I'm joined by Robbie Vino and Steve Merrill from WagerTalk.com. I am Drew Martin. This game kicking off 7:30 Eastern Time on NBC. Steve, coming to you first here. We're seeing the Seminoles. Tough start to this season, but they are catching 21 in South Bend at Notre Dame here, 52 being the total. What are you thinking with this ACC matchup, Steve?
Well, Drew, something obviously not right with Florida State for several seasons now. We keep feeling like, this is a Class A team like they were in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and even in just a few years ago, but they obviously are not any longer. I do think with the new coaching staff and situation there, they will continue to improve as the season goes, but we haven't seen it yet. They put up only 13 points against Georgia Tech, only 10 points in that blowout loss against Miami of Florida. Had a game against a 1AA team in Jacksonville State last week. They only won by 17 as a 26.5-point favorite, 41-24, but it was not impressive. They were down 21-7 in that game at one point until they made the quarterback switch to Jordan Travis. Now, I guess there's two ways to look at it. They outscored them, 34-3 afterwards, but I'm not buying into it. They're now taking on a very good Notre Dame team. I actually used Notre Dame as a best bet in each of their first two games. Missed out with them against Duke. They got off to that slow start in week one, but then they throttled South Florida 52-0. As a 24-point favorite in the second game. Problem is, though, they've now been off for over 3 weeks due to the COVID situation. That's a concern here, but all things equal, I like Notre Dame, and my power ratings do make them a 25.5-point favorite. So as long as they're fresh, ready to play, which I think they will be, they've had several weeks to prepare for this game. I think it's a pretty good spot for Notre Dame. I'm just not ready to jump on that bandwagon yet for Florida State until I see something against a 1A team this season.
All right, Steve and Robbie, what are you thinking here with the Seminoles and Irish?
Yeah, I'll build a little bit upon what Steve said there, where Florida State and Notre Dame are concerned. Jordan Travis will be your starting quarterback here. Dual threat sophomore, probably somebody that Notre Dame has not seen much on tape. Brian Kelly talked about knowing James Blackman inside and out, but James Blackman no longer your quarterback. This is the third starting quarterback for Florida State this year. So certainly they're working out some kinks here. When he entered the game last week, Steve gave you the score 34-6. He engineered 5 consecutive touchdown drives. Now, again, it's a product of an FCS team, certainly, but the other QB freshman could not move the team whatsoever. So we'll give Travis a little bit of credit here. Want to hit real fast on the Notre Dame coronavirus situation, which Steve also talked about. They're down to 11 guys that will not be in uniform this week. It's a far cry from the 39 that they would have been without against Wake Forest had they played a couple weeks back. So the new depth chart is out. None of the 11 are mentioned on the depth chart. Brian Kelly said they're perfectly fine in their top 22. So they're okay. They haven't lost anybody of significance. Look at Florida State real quick, guys. Not only the quarterback, but they're still shifting some personnel here. The defense has some constant and ongoing changes to that. A lot of it, Mike Norvell said, is because nobody wants to step up and take the lead yet. So they just keep putting bodies in to figure out who their leaders are on this team. And what's real troubling about Florida State, guys, is when the coach says in the fourth week of the season that they're still working on things like pad level communication and defensive alignment. It's not really great. They have a little bit of confidence off of that win last week. They did build somewhat across the defensive line. But I don't know. Like Steve said, he's not buying into it. I can't see buying into it either. Here's what I would recommend. I think I would play first half under 27.5 points here. Brian Kelly more than once has cautioned about how long of a layoff it's been for Notre Dame and that they're really still working just to get in sync. They had a scrimmage Sunday, weren't necessarily there yet. We'll see what the practice week brings, but he's trying to emphasize not getting off to a slow start. It's really reminiscent of their season opener against Duke when they started slow in the first half. And in fact, Kelly was asked, is this like having another season opener? And he said, you could almost consider that. I think they lean on the ground game because their passing game has been non-existent. How about this for a quote from Brian Kelly? in time, I think you're going to see a passing game that resembles the talent that we have. They're bringing a couple guys back off injury this week, but they're nowhere close. I think they run it. I think Florida State plays cautious with the new quarterback here in South Bend, and I'll take under 27.5 first half.
All right, looking towards the under in the first half. And Steve, coming to you in conclusion here, any kind of final thoughts on the game? And if you had to make a bet, would you have any recommendation here?
Yeah, Rob, you're getting some good value with that first half under because the game total is around 52, 51.5. So 27.5 would say, like 24 second half. So it's almost backwards,
Right.
at least according to what Rob's saying. Love to get 28. I don't know if we will because it looks like the line's dropping, but 28 would be a really key first half under. And I agree with you, Rob. I had Duke, as I mentioned, I had Notre Dame, in that Duke game, and I was kicking myself watching that first half. Notre Dame was extremely sluggish out of the gate. Now they've had almost 3 weeks off. It's kind of like week one all over again.
He's Steve Merrill on Twitter at Steve Merrill. That's 2 R's, 1 L. And Rob Vino on Twitter at Rob Vino Sports. Check out both of their work at WagerTalk.com. And remember, every Tuesday, $2 Tuesday, top play discounted to only $2 at Sports Memo and WagerTalk.com.